ISKCON, or the Hare Krishna movement, stands today as a pop cultural behemoth within modern Vaishnavism. It is the contemporary global expression of a centuries-old Hindu sect known as the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, which arose in the sacred centers of Jagannath Puri, Nadia, Navadvip, Mayapur, and Vrindavan from the 15th century CE onwards. The Sampradaya traces its identity to the teachings of Chaitanya, also known as Gauranga Mahaprabhu, born Vishwambhar Mishra in Navadvip, Bengal. Estimated time February 1486. Now fast forward to the 1960s, when this Sampradaya received an extraordinary boost between 1965 and 75, when one of its sannyasi, Swami Bhakti Vedanta, who was a Bengali disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, travelled to the United States and became a catalyst for a remarkable countercultural transformation in that country of dreams. In 1966, ISKCON was formally established, attracting a generation of spiritually restless youth, many from the hippie movement, whom Bhaktivedanta Swami fondly called his movement's main customers. These young seekers, once aimless, became his disciples and were instrumental in transforming the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition into a global spiritual force and an international success. Part of the movement's appeal lay in the nature of Chaitanya's teaching. Devotion expressed through dance, song, and joyous celebration. A lifestyle not alien to the hippie crowd, though reoriented towards the pleasure of God. This God, Krishna, truly omnipotent, able even to do that which he cannot do. For his powers are Achintya, or supra-logical, beyond the grasp of the ordinary reason. Logical thought here falters. The path to him lies instead in the ecstatic music and dance offered in his glorification. Chaitanya himself left no systematic philosophical writing. His message was distilled and elaborated by his contemporaries and successors, most prominently the sixth Goswamis of Vrindavan. It was much later in the 17th century that Jiva Goswami produced this book, the Sandarbha, the first rigorous philosophical treatise of the tradition, followed by Baladeva Vidyabhushan's Govinda Bhashya, a Gaudiya Vaishnava commentary on the Brahma Sutras. We are not going to dwell into the derivative literature of ISKCON, so we'll directly head to the primary philosophical corpus, Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha. Also, another central text in this tradition is Chaitanya Charitamrita, authored by Krishnadas Kaviraj. However, since it was composed after Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha, and indeed draws upon it as its principal philosophical source, our exploration of their mysticism will focus on Sandarbha alone. Here, we find that God is the ultimate philosophical substance, pure, vibrant bliss, Ananda Swarup. This divine reality can be experienced in three ways: as Brahma, as Bhagavan, and as Paramatma. When experienced without qualities, he is the Nirguna Brahma of Upanishads. When conceived with his qualities, he is the Saguna Krishna of Bhagavad Purana. And when he manifests himself in the world, he is Paramatman, the indwelling knower of things, or the Kshitrajna of the Bhagavad Gita. God's powers fall into three categories: internal, the Swarup Shakti; external, Maya Shakti; and the marginal, Tatastha Shakti. His internal power manifests as Vaikuntha, the enchantingly beautiful abode of the enchantingly beautiful Lord. His external power manifests as this material world of Maya. Thus, Jiva Goswami presents a dual ontology corresponding to the internal and the external and the marginal powers. The first world of Vaikuntha is pure sattva, untouched by time, decay, and suffering, is the manifestation of his internal power. The second world, this temporal world, it's impure, governed by the three material gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. It corresponds to the external and the marginal powers of the Lord. In the material world, these three gunas bewilder the mind, compelling it into activity that lead inevitably to suffering and breakdown. People act like crazy. They don't understand because they can't understand. The Lord's Maya, the gunas, are so bewildering that logical contradiction and logical consistency, the two enemies, live together happily. And indeed, the world cannot make sense because it is meant to bewilder. That which contradicts logic is built into its foundations. God's powers are supra-rational, Achintya. If you bring your head in, you'll be bewitched. Poor you, no fault of yours, because to be bewildered was its by default programming. To be non-bewildered, however, you have to do something extra. Your mind has to recognize the truth in the Gaudiya philosophy and then to dwell in the devotion of God by chanting His name, the Hare Krishna mantra. The mantra, they believe, has this unique power to kill all your sins and bring you ultimately in pure communion with Krishna. The more you chant, the better you become, aloof from suffering. Otherwise, your bewitchment and suffering won't find any redemption. You suffer because you've taken life too seriously. Your serious attitude towards life, your absolute involvement in its ups and downs, proves that you are really bewitched by Lord's Maya, His external power. Bewilderment is the very proof that God's powers are not ordinary. They are supralogical, Achintya. This Gaudiya Vaishnavism's doctrine is called Achintya Bhed Abhed, the philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference. It cuts across centuries of debate between Shankar, Ramanuj, Madhav and others, declaring, let's not talk about things that were meant to break down thinking in the first place. Let's hail and enjoy this divinity-inspired breakdown of logic. Chaitanya's devotional rapture is built on the ruins of epistemic pride of Nirvishesh Shunyavadins. This bewilderment is meant to serve devotion. If you use this bewildered state of mind to serve devotion, praise the Lord's supra-rational glories, it does something amazing. It stops your mind. In glorifying the supra-rational, the mind stops its restless search for worldly coherence and comes to rest in God's pastimes. Basically, devotion arrests your mind. Your mind retires into God, into His pastimes of Vaikuntha, and this retirement is a peaceful, joyous state. Because the very substance that God is, that Vaikuntha is pure bliss after all. In this state of staring into pure sattva, the substance of pure joy, your mind and body both are deeply affected. In this state, your body responds by ecstatic shivering, as was the case with Chaitanya. But this ecstasy is only a byproduct. It was not sought after. What was sought was multiple opportunities to witness Krishna's dalliance, to serve Him in the mood of a humble servant, Dasya Bhava. Now that's how you trace back from Jiva Goswami to Chaitanya. In short, epistemic failure is the license to shivering ecstasy. Achintya Bhed Abhed gives you a logical license to transcend logic itself and then join in the divine party. If contradiction is not a poor logic but the ultimate breakdown of logic, you have effectively solved all philosophical problems that you thought logic would help with. If logic cannot help, the problems were meant to be unsolvable and dazzle you in the first place. You've solved the problems because you've made a bigger discovery that they cannot be ultimately solved. Goodbye problems, goodbye ordinary world, I no longer take you seriously. And so, goodbye stress. What follows is a lovey-dovey with God, who remains. What follows is this state of divinely inspired ecstasy, Chaitanya-like state. Your whole day revolves around Krishna. And it's really beautiful, believe me. I've seen people. That's Krishna consciousness part of this derivative. So once you have this license to transcend logic, you can exploit the idea as you please. Jiva Goswami exploits it for his theological purposes. In this state of ecstasy, sages have witnessed God's own beauty. And this witness account is the verbatim text of Srimad Bhagavad Purana, especially its 10th canto, Dasham Skandha. For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, these events are not mythic allegories, but historical realities, just as real as Krishna's later avatar as Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. some 600 years ago. Jiva Goswami goes to lengths to prove that Krishna's pastimes, as recorded in Bhagavad Purana, is a historical event, verbatim. What happened in the history of Vrindavan thousands of years ago is the material replica of Vaikuntha, that eternal abode of Krishna. Later, Krishna descended as Chaitanya, a recent avatar, to demonstrate himself the authentic symptoms of a true devotee: ecstatic dance, song, and the rapture of hearing his own name. Chaitanya, before becoming the ecstatic devotee he was also a formidable Vedanta philosopher whose early life was spent mostly in Bengal. There were these places in Bengal where modern variant of Indian logic, Navya, was flourishing. Navya, that started with Gangesh Upadhyay of the 14th century, was developed by Raghunath Shiromani, who lived in Navadvipa, which was the hometown of Chaitanya. To see the ultimate failure and pointlessness of episteme and logic, and to use it as an argument in the Vedanta debate, is expected of Chaitanya. For Chaitanya, the recognition of epistemic failure becomes a life-fulfilling asset. If logic cannot capture God, then fulfillment and liberation lies not in mastering logic, but in transcending it altogether. What remains is devotion and devotion alone. And in the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, this transcendence of logic becomes the starting point. Philosophically, to deny all categories is also a category. The whole, according to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is not a conglomeration of its parts. The whole is not a transformation of parts. The whole is not changes induced in the parts, nor something different from them, nor identical with them, nor merely associated with them. The relationship between the whole and its parts is supralogical, the final nail in the coffin of the neat logical system of Gautama and Gangesh. In Gaudiya Vedanta, there is no Advait, nor Dvait, nor Vishishtadvait. The Bhed and the Abheda are both Achintya, inconceivable, supralogical. That's beyond logic. The milk becomes curd, but the connection, it's unthinkable. Ocean water becomes rain droplets, but the connection, it's unthinkable. Contradiction is no longer the problem. It becomes the key. Things contradict because things are essentially unthinkable. The world is neither wholly real nor wholly unreal. Contradiction. So forget about it. Both Satkaryavad and Parinamvad are valid. Contradiction again. Again, forget about all that. Krishna is within the sway of Maya, yet also its controller. Contradiction. The world is illusion and yet real. Again, contradiction. The efficacy of prayer does not mean that God takes sides. Contradiction. A devotee can influence God's actions, yet he remains utterly self-determined. Again, contradiction. People suffer because of God, yet he cannot be accused of cruelty. Again, contradiction. For the followers of Chaitanya, all contradiction is key to the supralogical. Omnipotent Krishna, one who can even do things that he cannot do. And why should such contradictions trouble the devotee after all? They are least afraid of it. For a true Vaishnava, it does not matter whether the world is real or illusory. The sole concern is the joy of Bhakti. And here lies a secret. Bhakti itself is a form of God's special power living in the devotee. Through it, an impartial God can be made partial towards you. Though untouched by his own Maya, he yields not from compulsion, but from love. But despite this, he remains impartial. Again, a contradiction, but hey. When you are in love and your beloved calls a bright day night, you say night. When love is too abundant, constraints of thought stop mattering. Poetry knows no logic. If joy overflows and someone insists that 2 and 2 make 5, you accept it, not from ignorance, but from a playful willingness to go beyond what was the norm. A person of this kind is bound by no definition. He both has a nature and transcends all nature. The Krishna of the Mahabharata is such a character, living in contradictions beyond conventional norms. His decisions are unexpected, his thoughts uncompromising. It's hard to pinpoint what his true nature was. The nature of his personality, to me at least, is what I like to call a weird kind of playful grace. One day you see him playing around with the girls of Vrindavan. Some other day, the same man is playing brute politics in battlefield. It doesn't match. Particularly interesting are the cases where I watch him handling unsolvable situations during the battle. He is the grand master of politics as well as seduction. To Gaudiya Vaishnavas, this Krishna is the ultimate metaphysical substance. Everything is his doing. He reabsorbs what he emits. In doing so, however, he disturbs his own equilibrium, and in this disturbance, creation occurs. It is as though to make a hill, one must dig a hole. The flat plane loses its flatness. Equilibrium is lost. Krishna thus creates the world, dissolves it back into himself, and creates it again, endlessly, as his divine play. Why? Don't even talk about that. Things are beyond logic, supra-rational, Achintya. To recognize this play and to devote oneself wholly to Krishna within it is the truest form of emancipation. Thus, ISKCON stands as both a continuation and a transformation. The ancient song of Bhakti carried on new winds, set afloat on the vast ocean of modernity. From the intimate kirtans of Navadvipa to the bustling streets of New York, it has carried the same cry, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, into hearts separated by centuries and continents. In its chants, one hears the echoes of Chaitanya's ecstatic devotion, now reflected through the rhythms of contemporary life, whether in temple courtyards, fragrant with incense, or on a city corner, alive with traffic. The movement remains tethered to the Gaudiya roots while reaching ever outward, inviting the world into its circle of devotion, dance, and divine remembrance.